All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Yahweh is the true, holy, and powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Bahashem meaning in the name. Yahweh Shai is the true, holy, and powerful name of his only begotten Son, who is the Savior of the nation of Israel, starting off with the elect within the nation of Israel. And Israel consists of you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, as well as your Israelite foreigners scattered abroad that may look like the nations where you've been scattered to, but are Israelites. And also want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing out this word in all sincerity and in truth. All right, this is the brother you call from the GMS branch out Des Moines. I welcome back at you with another lesson inspired by the Holy Spirit, Habakkuk Wadash. And Lord's will, I may entitle this lesson, The Land Beareth Witness Against Thee. All right, the land beareth witness against thee. All right, and the thee that I'm speaking about is the small hats. All right, those JOOs that are in our land, all right, the land of Israel, okay? Because, they're over there in that land proclaiming to be the true people of the Most High, all right? You know, the true people of the Lord, the true descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all right? And that's a lie. And prophecy shows that, clearly throughout the scriptures. And the fact that that land is cursed even now, right, to where it's not bearing fruit as it should or as it will when the true people are in that land, as we're going to read according to prophecy, is evidence that they aren't the true people. So I just want to go into some precepts on that, and I want to go into this clip here just to show how much effort, all right, and how much effort, how much money and resources they have to put in to them just being able to sustain themselves in that land, because the Lord doesn't bless that land to rain a lot, all right, as we're going to read in the scriptures, and all the technology they have to put in to just to try and make that land a desert. When we're in that land, all right, the Lord is going to have it to freely rain. Okay, we aren't going to have to have all these technological advancements to to sustain ourselves. Now the Lord is going to allow these things to flow naturally. All right, as a matter of fact, let's grab this in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 28. All right, and verse 1, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord Yahweh thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord Yahweh thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. Right, and this is going to be when we're in the new covenant, all right, because this is when we're going to be in full obedience to the Lord's laws, statutes, and commandments, because we're going to be in the new covenant, which means we're going to get the new bodies, and the laws, statutes, and commandments are going to be in our inward parts to where we cannot sin anymore. That is the new covenant that was made with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, being the northern and the southern kingdom. So when we're in those new bodies and when we're put in that land, which the Lord is going to do when we get delivered out of first and foremost Babylon, all right, the land of the north, as the scriptures call it in certain places, all right, and then the rest of the places where we've been scattered. When that happens, all right, and we get changed, and then we come back, all right, and however long that's going to be, however long that takes, we'll find out. All right, but that land is going to be refreshed and it's going to bring forth fruit. All right, and let's jump down to read that. This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 8. It says, the Lord Yahweh shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses and in all that thou settest thine hand unto, and thou, it says, and he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord Yahweh thy power giveth thee. It says that the Lord is going to bless us in the land that he giveth us, and he's given us that land over there. All right, I'll just go ahead and pull up this map here. Now what they're doing right now is they have it in their mind what they call the Greater Israel Project. And a lot of the wars, the war that's happening on over there, that's Esau trying to expand his territory and to remove those different Palestinians and so on and so forth out of that land, because he's trying to fulfill his own prophecy and expanded himself, all right, through the promise that was given unto our forefather Abraham, all right, where we will receive all the land from the great river Euphrates, all right, to the Nile River, all right, all the way down in Saudi Arabia. All that desert land is going to be turned into a Garden of Eden, but all of that is ours. All right, so him expanding is him trying to fulfill prophecy of receiving that land. But even in him doing that, you see that the Lord isn't with it, because that land is still cursed. All right, it's still not yielding forth its fruit. Why? Because the Lord has cursed that land. All right, and at one point that land did flourish. All right, at one point that land did have it was as abundance and, rivers and waters and everything like that. But as we're going to read, because of our disobedience, the Lord cursed that land and kicked us out of it, man. All right, until he would gather us again in these last days and bring us into that land to fulfill the promise, right? So this is the land that, we're speaking about. All right, you can read the various precepts, Genesis 15 and 18, the promise that was given unto Abraham and, various other precepts, right? But you see it right here. And all of this is ours, all right? And all of this right now is a desert. All right, further down in that Saudi Arabia, they call it the empty quarter, which is one of the largest deserts on the earth, okay? And it ain't cities flourishing there and nothing going on over there. And it's nothing but desert. But the Lord said that he's going to make that land the Garden of Eden when his people are in that land, right? And his people are not in that land right now, all right? So let's jump back to this. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 12. It says, the Lord Yahweh shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand, and thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. So the Lord is going to cause it to rain abundantly, or to flourish our crops, crops for our cattle. It's going to be truly a land of milk and honey, and that's not what it is. It doesn't matter how much technological advancements they try and, say they have to make it all. See, it's the land of milk and honey. No, all right. That's not what it is right now. It's a desert right now, all right? And that's plain to see. And we're going to, listen to some of these points in this video here. So this is how Israel is turning a desert into farmland, all right? And this from infographics show just from 2 years ago. All right, so let's go ahead and play some of it.
How do you grow large amounts of crop in an arid desert? You do what Israel does. How do you make sure plants get the water they need without wasting any of this vital resource? You do what Israel does. How do you ensure that soil doesn't become depleted of nutrients from over-farming? You guessed it, you do what Israel does. So, how does Israel manage to turn its deserts into fertile farmland in a sustainable way? Let's find out. This extremely small country sits on the banks of the Mediterranean and is mostly made up of desert. Yet Israeli agriculture is booming. They lead the world in sustainable farming technology and innovation in the sector. Over the last several decades, their groundbreaking practices have developed more out of necessity than anything else. What they've come up with is truly amazing and will forever change the world. To put the harsh climate of Israel into perspective, parts of the country only get around 1.2 inches of rain a year. On average, rainfall tends to be around 12 inches along the coast, but tends to fall mostly during the winter months, between November and March, meaning the rest of the year is dry. This is a huge problem for farmers who need to grow crops year-round to feed their families in the country. But in this harsh environment, growing plants can be incredibly difficult. For this reason...
Right, so as you heard in that fact that he made, that statement, all right, he said it rained... I think it was like, 1 to 2 inches a year in certain areas, right? Let's go ahead and play that back.
Put the harsh climate of Israel into perspective, parts of the country only get around 1.2 inches of rain a year. On average, rainfall...
So I was mistaken. It said part of the country only gets 1.2 inches of rain a year, all right? And then it says along the coast, some areas can get 12 inches of rain in an entire year, right? But then in those years, in the time when it does rain, all right, it's in the months of November to March, okay? So, it's, once again, the Lord has cursed that land, man. All right, to where it's not yielding fruit. And like I mentioned before, at one point, this land was not a desert, all right? It was a flourishing garden, okay? Let's go ahead and grab that, all right? This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8 and verse 7. It says, for the Lord Yahweh thy power bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks, of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills. Right. So when we were going into the land of Canaan, all right, which is the land of Israel, all right, our land, it was called the land of Canaan. Why? Because the Canaanites inhabited it. All right. But we drove the Canaanites out of that land. All right. Inherited as it was promised, to our forefathers to receive anyways. Right. It was told unto Abraham, all right, that the Lord was going to grant his seed that land. He told him about how we will be in captivity 400 years under the Egyptians, right? And then after that, the Lord would deliver us and, we would spoil the Egyptians. And that's when we got the rings and the different, gold ornaments and everything from them. And then the Lord, eventually brought us through that land through Joshua, all right, taking us into that promised land, right? So when we got into that land, this is how it was. Deuteronomy 8:7, for the Lord Yahweh thy power bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive and honey. Right. And what he just described there is not what it is right now. Okay. You know, it says, verse 9, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. So it's not that the last thing we would be lacking in that land is water. All right. You know, that's the last thing that we would lack in that land. But it's telling you we wouldn't have scarceness of anything. But yet they even have drip irrigation. All right, where they're trying to conserve so much water to where, you know, they have drip irrigation, which is going to go into in the clip, you know, but they literally have like a machine, all right, that literally drips water, you know, drip by drip, you know, right above the plant, like inches above the plant, you know, just to make sure they can conserve as much water as possible. All right. You know, it's like because of what? The scarceness of water that's used, man. They got to recycle the water from, you know, sewage and all this stuff. And it takes like 6 months to even, you know, for that water to even be clean enough to even reuse. Right. So it's just a bunch of madness, man. All right. A bunch of madness and pretty much overdoing it just to force themselves to survive in that land that the Lord is clearly not with them being in. OK, but it's all according to prophecy, man. All right. It says, you know, for them to try and proclaim that land to be theirs, you know, as we're going to read in the book of Ezekiel, Lord's will. All right. But it says a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. Right. So this is how the land was. But what now, like I mentioned, it's cursed. All right. This is the book of Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter. Deuteronomy chapter 29. Work with me. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse 22. It says, so that the generations to come of your children that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land shall say, when they see the plagues of that land, in the sickness which the Lord hath laid upon it, and that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, right, and Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. And this is what the Lord did pretty much to this entire land. All right, it ain't just a pocket of land. Like, nah, that whole land is like a desert. All right, that whole land is like a desert, man. All right, it says, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath, even all the nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord done this thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord Yahweh power of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. So the land went from being flourishing, you know, with brooks and valleys and waters and grass and oil of the vines and all this that we just read in that Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, to being a land like that was, you know, destroyed like it was, you know, like Sodom and Gomorrah, man, a desert. All right. You know, but it said what? Because of our disobedience to the Lord, to where the Lord cursed the land and kicked us out, man. All right. Until he brings us back. It says, verse 24 again, even all nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord Yahweh done thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord Yahweh power of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day. All right. So even to this day, all right, we've been cast out of that land. All right. Cast out of that land until what? Until the Lord brings us back. This is the book of Jeremiah. All right, this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, and verse 14. It says, Jeremiah 16 and 14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, right? So everybody knows about the Exodus and the plagues that the Lord brought upon Egypt, right? We still talk about that to this day, right? But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, right? So when did this happen? All right, when did this great deliverance happen? All right, that surpasses the great deliverance that happened out of Egypt that we should be talking about right now. All right. If this was already fulfilled, then we wouldn't be talking about, the deliverance that happened out of ancient Egypt. We would be talking about this worldwide, all right, seen by all nations, great deliverance of the Lord's people out of this land, all right, the land of the north. Okay. That is going to mention in another precept, right? Well, this precept as well. But the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands whither he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. So this is when we're going to be put in our land. All right. When the Lord provides this great deliverance that he promised that's going to eclipse the deliverance from out of ancient Egypt. All right. So you got those people that say that, they've been granted in that land and, it was a fulfillment of prophecy through the Balfour Declaration. And that's, that wasn't a great deliverance that surpassed what happened in ancient Egypt. The Lord destroying, a place with plagues and then, gathering hit like, nah, bro, that wasn't that. Okay. That wasn't that. That was in prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, the 35th chapter, how the nation of Edom, all right, the Idumeans appointed his land into their possession. So that was fulfillment of that prophecy, but not a fulfillment of a great deliverance, all right, to happen that led to us being put back in our land. All right. That wasn't that, man. Okay, let's read another one. Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter. All right. Jeremiah chapter 23 in verse 7. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. So we ain't going to be talking about the Exodus. What happened then? All right. We're going to be talking about this new deliverance. All right. That hasn't happened yet, but we're on the precipice of, right? It says, but the Lord liveth. So this is what we're going to talk about, which brought up and which led the seed, which is a specific genealogy, a specific, nation by nationality, by that seed line, right? All right, which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, which is talking about here in North America, Babylon the Great. And from all the countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. So when this deliverance happens, it's simultaneous. All right, when we're getting our land back, man. Okay, we get delivered. All right, and that land is ours, man. Plain and simple. All right, all them heathens gonna be up out of there. Ain't finna be battling over whose land it is. Like nah. All right, the gods is gonna reign out of that land. Okay, that's the Garden of Eden. All right. Plain and simple, right? So this hasn't happened yet. And how is that deliverance going to happen? It's going to be via the chariots. This is the book of Isaiah, the 31st chapter. Let's hit a couple precepts on that. Then we're going to go back to that article or go back to that clip. Isaiah 31 and 5. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending also, he will deliver it, and passing over, he will preserve it. So it says, as birds flying is how our deliverance is going to come. All right, and what is that speaking about? The so-called UFOs, the chariots. That's why in the book of Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter, what does it call those chariots? This is the book of Habakkuk. All right, them same, orbs, so to speak, that's been in the news. Some of them are drones. Some of them are, Esau's madness. But, all right, a portion of them is actually the angels and the so-called UFOs, and they're the vehicles of our salvation. Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 8. Was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea? That thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariots of salvation. Right. So those chariots, those so-called UFOs, are going to be a part of our salvation. And this is how we're going to be delivered out of the land of the north, Babylon the Great, and the various other areas where, the elect is scattered. Right. And then, eventually taken into our land. All right. So once again, man, those small hats, this ain't applying to them. Okay, they didn't go through this. All right, this great deliverance, and then was setting the land through the so-called chariots and the UFOs. Like, nah, they placed their ass in that land through the Balfour Declaration. All right, and then they said that they the people. Okay, which, it's clear that they aren't the true people of the Lord, man. Prophecy shows that clearly, right? So let's go back to this clip.
Tends to be around 12 inches along the coast, but tends to fall mostly during the winter months, between November and March, meaning the rest of the year is dry. This is a huge problem for farmers who need to grow crops year-round to feed their families in the country. But in this harsh environment, growing plants can be incredibly difficult. For this reason, Israeli farmers and scientists have found ways to make the most out of their water, land, and crops. This is not only good news for the people of Israel, but for the world as a whole, since Israeli researchers are more than willing to share their practices and technology with other farmers. These innovations allow other countries that may also have harsh environmental conditions to grow crops year-round using very few resources. The most obvious problem to overcome with farming in Israel is the lack of water. How do you turn deserts into farmland in such a hostile environment? There are a few innovations that Israeli agriculturalists and researchers have come up with that turn the desert into a bountiful place to grow crops. And since around 8.5 million people are living in a country the size, the major issue with using water from the Mediterranean is that it contains salt, since salt water kills most. So where does a nation made up of mostly desert get its water from? The Mediterranean Sea, of course.
Right, so the main source that they get their water is from the Mediterranean Sea. And as he's going to explain, the Mediterranean Sea is salt water. So they got to go through this whole extensive process of removing the salt out of the water. All right, but to remove the salt out of the water, it removes all the minerals out of the water. So then they got to go through this extensive process to put minerals back in the water just to be able to use it. All right. And this is, trillions, this takes billions upon billions of dollars to do this, man, to power these plants, and here it is. They want to talk about all this, the global, I don't even know if I could use that, but they talking about everything's heating up and everything like that because of, too much CO2 that's being emitted by these different things. So they're going to put a cap on it. But this, how much energy this takes, man, to do this whole process? And it's like, bro, if you got to go through all this, like, nigga, move. All right, get out the land, nigga. You're doing too much. All right, obviously you're not wanted in that land. You need to go find somewhere else where it's a little bit more water for you, But this is once again showing you that the Lord is, he's not with them being in that land.
Issue with using water from the Mediterranean is that it contains salt. Since salt water kills most plants that are grown on land, this might seem like an unusable source of water. Israel gets around this problem by using desalination facilities to remove the salt and create fresh water. This is not only done for agricultural purposes, but for drinking water as well. The problem with desalination is that it can be energy intensive and costly. However, if done right, as Israel has done, it can provide an almost unlimited source of water. Israeli desalination plants work by pumping salt water from the Mediterranean Sea into a pre-treatment chamber where the water passes through several different filters to remove any sediments or particles that might be suspended in the water. These impurities need to be removed to ensure the rest of the process goes smoothly. If larger particles made it past this tank, it can cause blockages in the next series of filters, which could result in the whole system needing to be cleaned before the desalination process can begin again. The pre-treatment process uses a mixture of gravity and jets to move the water through the filtration system. Once the water is cleared of any larger particles, the salt needs to be removed. Since the salt is dissolved in the water, the molecules are too small to take out with conventional filters. Instead, the desalination process employs the use of reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis occurs when water is forced through a semi-permeable membrane with pores small enough that only water molecules can pass through it. Since the salt molecule, NaCl, is larger than a water molecule, H2O, the salt gets trapped behind the membrane while the water molecule passes through the microscopic holes. But it's not just salt that reverse osmosis removes, it also separates any other dissolved substances from the H2O molecules. This results in a sterile, almost completely pure water source. But this is not the last step in the operation. Interestingly, Israel's desalination process is so effective that minerals and chemicals must be put back into the water to ensure it meets taste and anti-corrosion requirements. This happens in the third stage at desalination plants before the water is pumped out of the facility to faucets and irrigation systems across the country. Again, the process of desalination is super effective and can generate enormous amounts of fresh drinking water.
Right, so you see how complicated and extra, that whole process they got to go through, where here it is, the Lord can literally just, make it rain. But instead, they're rebelling like, okay, he doesn't want to make it rain. We're going to, We're going to get our own water our own way. We don't need him. All right? Crazy madness, man. All right? But it's clear that, look, the Lord, they're not the people, man. Because in our land, as we're going to read, it's going to be flowing. It's going to be raining. We ain't finna be going through all this extra ass process just to dwell in our own land, the chosen land. Like, come on now. We ain't finna go through all that. Now, I'm gonna skip forward. Once again, you can watch all of this, man. But I just want to grab some of these more pertinent points.
Systems and technological advances allow Israel's leakage rate to be the lowest in the world, at only around 7 to 8% loss during operation. For most water systems, the typical loss rate is close to 30%. This means that Israel is saving millions of gallons of water from being wasted each year. Plus, almost all of the water used by farmers and Israeli citizens gets recycled, so it can be repurposed. Over 80% of the water flowing to farms and households in Israel is recycled. This is also the highest reuse of water out of any nation in the world. Over half the water used for irrigation and agriculture comes from water treatment plants, where waste is removed during a series of natural and artificial filters. This is a time-consuming process and can take as long as 6 months to purify the wastewater completely, but in the end, it's worth it. Recycling water is...
Right, so I wanted to grab this one because in this, to purify the wastewater that they got to use, this recycled wastewater that they got to use, it takes 6 months just to have it pure enough. You got to cleanse this water that much, all right, for 6 months just to be able to reuse it, Like, look at the extent that they're going through just trying to dwell in that land, just trying to fake like they're the people, man. All right? Like, nah, bro. Like, we not going to go through all this, man. I'm going to just grab one more point out of this clip, and then we're going to, hit these other precepts, man.
Drip irrigation is one aspect of precision irrigation that's money, but saving resources as well. There are several ways this is done, each of which is more sophisticated and effective than the last. Drip irrigation is one aspect of precision irrigation that saves on water and nutrients, while also making sure each plant gets the sustenance it needs. Drip irrigation works exactly as you'd expect. The hoses and nozzles that distribute the water are close to the ground and drip directly into the dirt above where the roots are located. This water then seeps into the ground and nourishes the plant. This simple but effective process allows for more water to be absorbed by the roots before it evaporates. Sometimes the irrigation system is actually funneled underground and provides water directly to the roots of plants under the soil. Both methods reduce the amount of water needed to sustain a large field of crops compared to traditional watering systems that spray sizable amounts of water.
Right, so these dudes, they got to be so careful with how they use their water, to the point to where they trying to stop water from evaporating before it hits the ground. If it come out a hose, like this is madness, man. All right, this is madness. Now let's go and read this in the book of Ezekiel, man. But they're the people, and they're the chosen people that the Lord loves, and right. And they supposed to be in that land, and the Lord wants them there. And come on now, this is crazy, man. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36. I'm sorry, Ezekiel, 36. I might have said Ezekiel 35 earlier in the lesson, so Salaki if I did. But Ezekiel 36:1. Also, thou son of man, prophesy unto the mountains of Israel, and say, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord Yahweh. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, because the enemy has said against you, aha, even the ancient high places are ours in possession. Therefore prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that ye might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and ye are taken up in the lips of talkers and are an infamy of the people. So the heathen have taken their land and our possession, man. All right, that chosen, the chosen land, the land of Israel, right? Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord Yahweh power. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, to the mountains and to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, to the desolate wastes, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession. Right, so it says the Idumeans, which is the Greek way of saying Edom, the Edomites, all right, the so-called white man has appointed the Lord's land, our land, into their possession. All right, the scriptures talk about how the heathen devour our land in our presence in the book of Isaiah. So they're over there, man, having alphabet parades, right? But they're saying they're the people of the Lord, completely going against the scriptures, man. All right, doing all types of wickedness behind closed doors, but they're the chosen people in the land, right? Madness. It says, it says, I have spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my fury, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh power, I have lifted up my hand, surely the heathen that are about you shall bear their shame. But ye, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches. Right? This is talking about our land flourishing. And yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are at hand to come. Right? So, this is what's going to happen, man. The land is going to yield its fruit to the Lord's people. All right? So that's why that land is not yielding forth its fruit. Why? Because the Lord's people are not there. All right? It says, for they are at hand to come, meaning we on our way. All right? We are on our way, man. The Lord is, getting ready to do away with this place and, cleanse out that land of the heathen and bring us up in there, man. All right. It says, for behold, I am for you, and I will turn unto you, and ye shall be tilled and sown. And I will multiply men upon you, all the house of Israel, even all of it. And the city shall be inhabited, and the waste shall be builded. So that whole desert is going to be a beautiful garden, man. Flourishing, rivers, valleys, right? Better than it was before. It says, and I will multiply upon you men and beasts, and they shall increase and bring fruit. And I will settle you after your old estates, and will do better unto you than at your beginnings. And ye shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, man. All right, so let's jump down to verse 34. And the desolate land shall be tilled, whereas it lay desolate in the sight of all that passed by. Right, and it's desolate right now, but it's going to be tilled. And they shall say, this land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden, and the waste and the desolate and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Then the heathen that are left round about you shall know that I, the Lord Yahweh, build the ruined places and plant that was desolate. I, the Lord Yahweh, have spoken it, and I will do it. All right. So that's what it is, man. So when the rightful owners of that land, all right, get put in that land, the Lord's chosen people, then that land is going to flourish, man. But until then, all right, as those heathen are in our land right now, Esau, Edom, all right, and them other Palestinians, whoever the hell is up in there, man, all right, they all going to get removed. Plain and simple, man. So having that being said, Lord, what I was edifying, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, the honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, pushing out this word in all sincerity and in truth. With that, I'm going to say shalom.